Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us today for this interview with Master Bruce Francis. We're here at the Longmont Energy Arts Training Center on a very snowy day. Good time to talk about how to do some dynamic standing and a little bit about the three dantiens. Bruce is teaching a workshop this weekend, December 6th and 7th. So we just kind of wanted to give you guys a little bit more of a picture of exactly what he's going to be teaching, some of what he's going to be teaching, and also some of the history about how he learned it and his experiences standing in China. So glad you're here, and we're going to go ahead and get rolling with Master Bruce Francis. So we're just going to talk a little bit today about how in the heck you got started with this standing biz, because a lot of times I think most people who have no exposure to qigong in general, standing is almost a negative thing. You stand around in line, you wait. There's not really this association with it being something that can actually do something good for you. So what is it about standing that actually lets you improve or become stronger, healthier?
Well, that's a multi-pronged thing, and it's probably a bit different for some people. But when I was first in Japan, I wasn't doing any Chinese martial arts. At the very beginning of it, I was only doing Japanese martial arts. And I did really well in Judo, but I was starting to get the aches and the pains and the things that happen in Judo when your knees get twisted too much. And I looked around me and I saw that when I would go to the Kodokan, I used to see that half of the people were clearly going to get crippled by it. So I said, that's not too good. And you can't really win competitions if your knees are really bad. And I got that because one time when I had another guy like, way up in the air, I don't know how he twisted his body, but it twisted my knee and I was in pain for a while. So, first I went to the doctors they had there, and, they were telling me if I didn't stop doing Judo, I was probably going to become a cripple and I was best off stopping. This is a common problem athletes who really get hurt do it. And it's different than your normal sports, because your normal sports are, the only time you really see it is in football, is in basketball. When a person turns too fast, next thing the stretcher comes and takes them away as they tear their knee apart. Anyway, so that summer, I went to Taiwan to check out the Chinese martial arts scene, because a person who lived nearby me, who was the one who originally got me all my bouncing jobs, that he said the guy he thought was the most amazing was, a fellow named Wang Shujing, who was about a little bit shorter than me, but like big as a house, at least double my weight. And this guy was amazingly strong. So after a while in Tokyo, I was able to find out how to get a connection to him by this fellow who owned a coffee shop in Roppongi. So that summer I had straight for Taiwan and trained with him. And he said I had a lot of potential, which, coming from someone like him, who was a major master in Taiwan, was a good sign. So I go back and I'm doing a little more Judo, but he had a student in Tokyo who was good, not great, but he'd been with him for a long time. The person I wish I could have done it with was Wang Shujing's second student, whose Bagua was, really first rate.
Is this the Goto guy that you mentioned in your book?
No. That's when I started doing Shingi.
Okay.
Okay, so anyway. So then I went and I took his classes, because Tai Chi. And I had been exposed to Tai Chi from the time I was about 15 in New York. And the thing is that this guy would start all his classes with people standing like this, and they're doing this basic set of qigong exercises. At Jingmen Qing School, nobody ever did that. And as I started asking around and finding out, standing was considered by people to be one of the foundations of really high-level Chinese martial arts. So anyway, so I started really getting into what he was doing, and before it was too long, I was practicing for hours a day. And then my knee just started getting better till it got normal. Okay. The year before, where I knew my knee was bad, there's a place in Tokyo called the Ginza, which was like a bit like Fifth Avenue in New York. Not quite, but anyway, it was entertainment and this and this and that and that. And 2 or 3 times my knees just gave right out walking. They just gave out from underneath me and I'm on the ground, which was embarrassing for a 19-year-old.
So I got a question for you, because you're going to go and you meet Wang Shijing, but you got this really strong karate background. So you're a karate hotshot and you've been doing this stuff. You're young. Yeah. And there's this older guy who's telling you to stand still and telling you this is what's going to give you power.
Wang Shijing only did that a little. He was mostly training in Bagua.
Okay.
But at that time, but it turned out that Wang Shijing was also known for this. And when he was in Japan, he had all his students doing it. Because among the internal martial arts, there's Tai Chi, Shingi, and Bagua. And Shingi, the person who got into that, he's the one who really introduced standing in a big way to the Shingi crowd. First of all, the basic thing that you do like this and you stand for incredible lengths of time, that's not standing with your feet parallel or with your foot on one thing and your other toe up in the air as you're facing sideways. But yeah, he was very impressive. So one of the people that after I'm doing it with Zhang Yizhong in Tokyo, I asked, one time I asked Zhang Yizhong, he said, like, what, if you really want to get good, what do you do? He said, you do these basic exercises, especially the standing. Mm-hmm. And so I took his word for it.
So Zhang Yizhong was your first primary exposure to standing when you started practicing a lot?
That's a yes and a no, the way to put it. When I first thought, yes. But within not that long a period of time, there was a fellow in the class called Kawashima, and he had been a 5th dan in karate, and he was a college student. I was a college student, and we really jived. And he said, well, you got to realize there's another guy who can really show you about the standing stuff. And that was Kenichi Sawai, who did the form of Shingi called Ichen. And so I went there and going, oh, could I learn? And then he said, this guy was what I guess in America you would call old school. He had killed God knows how many people in World War II when he was a colonel in the Japanese, let's say Japanese hit squads, leave it at that. And so he has me go against a student of his and Goto, and he says, oh, Goto, do some karate too. And he showed you now that this may be better. Okay, great. So now it turned out that Goto was a bear. So anyway, we're sparring for a while, and I'm getting 1 or 2 things on him, and so I kind of like nods his head, and then Goto just kicks me once in the solar plexus. I was on the ground for half an hour.
That sounds deeply unpleasant.
And when he asked Goto, he said, think can learn, this boy can learn. He says, has talent. Okay? Now, granted, my talent was nothing compared to this guy's talent because he also had another 10 years with Sawai. And anyway, so I learned how to do standing. And from the fact that from what I did with Zhang Yizhong, my knee was getting better. And from them, with this class that I was taking on Sundays, my knee was getting better. And I saw it getting strong. And within a year, it's the strongest it's ever been in my life. And that's a hell of a statement for a 19-year-old to make, especially when it was in the heavy training. So anyway, okay, great. So that went fine. And it also turned out Kenichi Sawai, actually, you'll see a lot of things in Oyama's karate book. And Sawai was all these points and circles. That all came from Sawai. That's who we learned it from. Anyway, so I said this was good. So I was practicing at least 6 hours a day.
You were standing 6 hours a day.
With Zhang Yizhong, I was learning just the most basic thing, which was your hands by your sides.
So that's kind of the neutral standing that you teach inside of energy gates?
Yes, and that is the thing that in China primarily did who were starting out, who they were doing it for their health. I had wrecked knees, so I think that it qualifies as health. But then as it started going further with Sawai, I started learning the postures of Ichen. And it all just became part of the 6-hour workout.
So I'm really glad that you brought that up. Because with the course that you're going to teach on the weekend, we were talking about dynamic standing. So not just the neutral standing, but getting the arms into different positions and heights. What is it that changes the experience? What does bringing the arms into play change?
First of all, let me continue where I was before.
Yeah, sure, not to cut you off.
And your question will get answered. Now, in China, the people who did Shaolin, they also stood, but they stood in postures like karate people, with their feet very, very wide. When you do Taoist standing, your feet don't go wider than your shoulders. That's a big difference between you trying to get your feet out as wide as you can, and where they have this incredible emphasis on splits. Anyway, doing that, I found that I was able to start syncing my chi and all these things I heard of. And within a year, I was fighting 5th-degree black belts who before that would have kicked my ass, and I was kicking their ass without a lot of trouble. Mostly because my body was moving faster. It made my kicks better, and it really put a lot of power in my arms. Didn't put speed because I wasn't that fast when I was younger with my hands. I was very fast with my feet. Anyway, so he did that, and I came back, and I can always remember that sometimes he would take everybody and we'd all have sushi over his place. It's the best sushi I ever had in Japan, actually.
Nice.
But I mean, when it would come out, with a thing like this.
Yeah.
And everybody be going. And then he would, talk about the old days and talk about things they wanted to focus on with Yichuan. Now, Yichuan was a derivative of Shingi. In the original Shingi, there were very specific standing postures that you did, but the bulk of it was done moving. And so he just kind of, he picked and choose from those which ones he wanted to teach. Now, where does shit come from? Oh, that's a different story, because that's one of its adaptations, a couple of hundred years later. Originally, all Taoist practices, all Taoist Chi practices, all of them boil down to being done while you're standing, sitting, moving, lying down, and practicing with trees.
So interacting with another being.
With trees, yeah. So you could suck the energy from the tree. And so I did that stuff. And I didn't really understand the full extent of this till I met my last teacher, Liu Hongjie, who explained it to me. And in that, there were 200 standing postures. That's where we come to your question of what does it sticking your arms up in the air do?
Yeah.
Well, you can look at standing from two positions. You can look at it from chi, and you can look at it from how it affects the body. Now, for people who are in the martial arts, their big thing is usually power. For people who are really sick, they don't care about power. Their power they want is power over their health, because they got a lot of troubles with that. And so the Taoists came up with a system of 200 standing postures, of which Shingi got a few of them. Not most, not like the majority, like a small minority of them. So what those things do is that, first of all, from a more physical level of preparation, is that they open up the structures inside your body that allow you to move and allow you to generate power. And those were mostly, confined to sinking chi, your tendons, your ligaments, how those tendons and ligaments feed your muscles, your endocrine system, your lymphatic system.
You can get that deep into the tissues of the body by standing.
Oh, you can get into the cells. Forget about that. But then with all these, and those form the basis, because if you're going to use chi for something like fighting or power, it has to function through a body. And these are the things in the body that are really important for that power. Because in standing, you don't use any tension, just like in the internal martial arts. If you've learned it for real and not just what I call park Tai Chi, where you don't necessarily gain any power from it. And the reason why a lot of martial arts laugh at Tai Chi, well, you're going to fight with them in slow motion, which is kind of something that only an idiot would say. something to not get a reputation and become the guards to the emperors and the teachers to the emperor's guards by fighting in slow motion. I'm sorry. But anyway, if you're trying to show the superiority of what you're doing, then you pick on any small points you can to be nasty. And so that's what a lot of people in karate and this and that. Anyway.
Yeah, just sour grapes.
No, it can be sour grapes. It also simply can be what you wish was the case.
Hmm.
You know, they have an old phrase in China, who wants to be number two? Okay, so when you come to two martial arts guys come around, the thing that's always happening inside their head is that who's number one, who's number two? Okay? Like in MMA, you don't get paid the big money for being number 7.
Yeah, I mean, you want something that really works, which is why Tai Chi, Bagua, Shingi got this incredible reputation because it worked.
And it got it from fighting and doing it for real. So that explains you get this. The first early things are that what is initially blocking your ability to feel chi in your body? Because if you can't feel it, you can't really practice it. Or put it this way, practice can't go that far. Right? If you can't see very well, you're the wrong person to be doing a steeplechase. Okay, you gotta get your knees hit as you try and jump over the whatever because you don't even see it. Okay, so this happened, and this then got developed into standing practices that were either done as a thing by themselves. Each one's a thing that does it as its main practice, but it goes into a lot of other practice.
So you're saying that whatever posture you're taking out of these 200 that are in this library of postures, there's a physical element. So doing something with your body is going to change how your body responds, and there's an energetic element.
Right, and the physical element simply prepares your body to accept the chi moving through it.
Oh, so it's like a container and then something that fills it. It's a structure and then
right. But without the container, it's like if all you electricity, we have wires, we have tubes, we have also. But if you go to what Tesla was coming up with, they're just electricity going like this, and you can put your finger in it, nothing's going to happen to you because it's not attached to anything. So anyway, and this went through many. Shingi really specializes in it, but not entirely. And all the better Tai Chi schools, their early trainings with a lot of standing. And in Bagua, some of the early training is with standing. They just use different stances and different hand positions to fit in with their Bagua.
So when you're doing these postures, I've seen some of the I-Chuen postures that you've done before, and I see you doing things like this at different levels. Do those correlate? Well, actually, before we go into anything with the dantiens, because I was going to ask about the dantiens, but I do want to ask this question, and it sounds super basic, so humor me here. I think a lot of people get this idea of some sort of power center in their lower belly, or people talk about core training. But what really is a dantien? What is that in the body?
Well, it's two things. If you want to speak practically, one, your lower dantien is the energetic center which powers every other energetic center in your body. So it's like you go to Las Vegas, right? And you got $2 chips and you got $2 million chips, okay, that the big boys play with. Well, the lower dantian is like the $2 million chip because it then can separate itself and power every other energetic center in your body or point or whatever. And they go through, the lower dantian is what makes the power go in bigger and smaller. It's the regulatory mechanism of the chi in your body. So some schools start and they only just do a lot of everything. First you got to get aware of it. And then you start doing something with it. Some schools start with you just become aware of it and then you try and slowly but surely connect it to everything else it's connected to. So you have some control over it. You can make it do what you want it to do.
So there's the lower dantian. I've heard you speak before about two more. Is there
There's
the middle
two,
and the
there's
upper?
three. First of all, keep in mind that the whole energetic thing, it comes from the teachings of Taoism, which are all about how to use energy for spiritual reasons, for ordinary life, not being sick, being strong, and for, now we come into the other two. The middle dantian controls all the chi that powers any relationship you will ever be in. You're like, oh, two people meet each other, oh, they feel something. Well, that means their middle dantian is just activated. But it can go further than that. It can go that the middle dantian controls all relationships, and including the one life and death. When you die, what happens when you die, where you go when you die. It also includes that, because that's a relationship with death. Life has a direct relationship with death. If you're born, guaranteed you're going to die. Okay, so they're in relationship. Then the upper dantian governs all the capacities of the mind. So it's not just thinking better. It's everything your mind can do. If your mind can travel outside your body, that's happening from the upper dantian. If you're able to have continuous recognitions of scientific problems, all these things where they go eureka, 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 for a moment their dantian flashed. But it's anything to where it's a relationship between anything that could be called mental. And the old word from the 1800s is actually closer to mentation. Everything that somehow mental processes are involved. So that's the upper dantian.
Okay. That is really fascinating. So when you're doing standing, you can work with these different dantians depending on how you're placing the hands inside of the posture?
Well, you can anchor your hands in whichever dantian you want, but internally, your process now is connecting the energy of this to this to this to this to this to your little finger, this to everywhere in your body, to where they're all crossing each other. But you get control of the central switch.
Wow. You've talked a lot about energy bodies. These specific dantians being more involved with mentation, connection, powering the body.
Well, each of the three dantians is involved with.
Yeah.
It's just that what is its primary function?
Yeah, they all do everything, but there's specialization.
Right.
So are there greater connections with the physical energy body, the emotional energy body, the mental energy body at these different dantians as well?
Yes, it's definitely stronger. But it's not like it's the only game in town. You have ratios, 70%, 60%, 50%, and how much it goes up. And the fact of the matter is that you tune this, it can tune this. You tune this, it can tune both of these. And you make them connect until whatever it needs to get boosted, at the moment it's needed, gets boosted.
Got it. So when you're doing standing, I think you were talking about the container and you were talking about what's inside of it. And
your body's the container. The energy inside your body is what's inside it.
And you've mentioned before that it's not just that you slap your arms into a position and freeze. It's that there's a way to get into and out of them, and that changes it.
Yeah. People have strengths and weaknesses. Some parts of them are very strong. One person's absolutely brilliant, but a physical dud. One person's a behemoth physically, but mentally is a dud. We wouldn't want to offhand think of many top football players of putting them to become president of America. Because yes, their bodies are incredibly tuned, but their minds aren't. Or their minds are incredibly tuned, where for one or two activities, they can do those very well, but the rest very poorly. So that's about all that comes down to. And the trick and the first stages of standing you want to make the body healthy. You want to make the body strong. Because there's not much you can do in life without a body.
Hmm.
Okay. But then when you start getting a bit older, and it's not just when you reach puberty, because this governs, love and all that romantic shit. It's also the fact that it contains how, when this romantic shit fires, does it affect your thinking? Does it affect your body? I mean, many artists, many intellectuals are kind of, reach points where they just can't go any farther. But yet, when their middle dantian begins to wake up, all of a sudden they start having romantic relationships, but also they begin to start feeling the more subtle things that move between people.
Hmm.
So it's something like that. I mean, I'm simplifying this to a great degree, but those are some basics.
Gotcha. I did want to just touch on something that is not part of this course specifically, but you are in the summer planning to teach the spiraling energy body, which takes some of the basic standing practices inside of energy gates and it starts to expand them into other places and completes it. I was wondering if you could just tell me a little bit more about the spiraling energy body and how that plays into expanding standing.
Well, you have all types of channels in your body. And you have ones that are relatively single focus.
Hmm.
The spiraling energy body, energy moves through your bones. It doesn't move in a straight line. It goes like this. And then from this, it spirals into the center of the bone marrow. And the bone marrow is absolutely critical for physical capacities or for mental capacities. And in martial arts, it was highly praised because once that energy starts getting into your bone, you start developing what some people have called tiger bones. Okay, an example is that Jing Manching, when he would be, writing prescriptions or playing chess, he stick his arm out and he just asked his students to pound it as hard as they wanted. Nothing happened to him. His demeanor didn't change.
Mm.
And I've done that with people. I don't like to do it because if you get this and your arms are hard enough, you'll break their arm. Or else, even if you don't break their arm, you can cause them a lot of mental trauma. Now, many martial arts do this by starting with sticks and then getting iron bars and hitting themselves. The great trouble is that sort of traumatic shocking of the body is not good for your physical or mental health.
Mm.
It distorts acupuncture meridians in your body. Whereas this stuff where you make it come from the inside, it's like you're growing this inside you. You're growing new bones. Now, the question comes up with a lot of people, will this work for osteoporosis? And the answer is I don't know, because I never met a woman who really did it, who had osteoporosis and got rid of it.
Mm-hmm.
I met women who've had osteoporosis and they can take amazing shots to their arms or their legs and nothing breaks and they're okay afterwards with a little recovery time. But I can't answer that question. I'm only putting it this because I've been asked this 1,000 times. Now, you have these energy centers in the body. Yoga always talks about 7 of them. Taoists talk about 3 because a lot of them combine in a lot of ways. And that affects you physically, mentally, and spiritually.
Mm-hmm.
And standing is a preparation for going into the more in-depth practices, which in Taoism are done sitting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So inside of spiraling energy body, where you're working with these spiraling currents that go all the way down into the marrow, the physical movements don't change much from energy gates. It's what you're doing with the inside of your body.
Well, no, I mean, your hand's here.
Hmm.
The way you move your finger a little bit, it'll change the flows inside your body.
Hmm.
Hands like this, you move it like that, you'll change the flows inside your body. But you don't, in the beginning, what you have to do is to get how to go from nothing, how to activate those channels in your body as your hand moves into a position. How to get those channels to activate as your hands go into a position, whether it's high whether it's middle or whether it's low, whether it's to the side, whether it's to the back of you.
So that you're learning to work with that upward current to take positions into this. The standing and spiraling starts to use the hands.
Right. And then you have the issue of what happens if it starts getting too intense? So I got up to here, right? Now I look at my fingers. I'm bringing the energy right down to my feet. So I'm chilling it out. It's a bit like something's too hot, you cool it off.
So there's a balance between fire and water that you're quenching.
Now, the fire schools emphasize more the upward current, the fire current, and the water schools emphasize more the calming down, the cooling out one. But I'm not going to go into saying one's better or worse than the other. They're just two different. Like, I'm not going to say that Catholicism is better or worse than Protestantism. Okay, it's just that either one will fit certain situations better, or as a whole combined thing, interacting with each other. Some are more useful for some conditions and some for others.
I know that we are on a tight timeline today with some appointments, so we got to get you out of here. And we got a lot of snow outside, so we better build in a little extra time. It's a very snowy, beautiful day here in Longmont, Colorado. So thanks a bunch for this time, Bruce. We're all really looking forward to the weekend.
And you want to say about, where I learned? I didn't finish that.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, look. So I did it with Wang Shijing, and I did it with Kenichi Soai. And whenever I would go back and forth from Taiwan, whenever I had vacation time from school. But then I'm in Taiwan, and then I would visit. I was in the north. He was in the south.
Who was in the south?
Wang Shijing was in the middle of Taiwan. Taichung means middle of Taiwan. But I would go when I could, and I would also meet other people who were not quite up to his standard, but they were up very high standard. And I would just keep on researching. I mean, cross research is the way you actually get really good in almost anything. So I would be doing cross research, and then I went to India. And I went to India and I learned, and I did pranayama, where I was doing it 8 hours a day, and I could do an 8-minute breath. And all of these things were leading back to qi. Because breath qi in both languages, both in Sanskrit and in Chinese, the same words. They're the same thing, they just change it a little bit.
I always find that wild when you talk about doing the pranayama in India, where you were doing 8-minute breaths. That always strikes me as like pretty wild.
Well, it gave me some very, very good background because, a lot of this stuff about internal body control, the best yogis can do it, the best qigong people can do it. And the principles they're working on are not, the methods they use, the practice methods they use are quite different. But if you're talking about the principles they're working on, they're not so different.
So everything that you've done, it's not just you went to one school and learned this. You learned from so many amazing masters in so many different styles. The way that you present standing is from a very versatile and complete perspective. That comes from
one thing very simply. After I finished studying in Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Taiwan, in China, I got introduced to a person they call a Taoist immortal. And he's the head of a lineage. And in China, the true people who are immortals, because a lot of people get their name and it doesn't mean anything. It's like honorific. But he started taking me through from the beginning. He said, oh, you do this. And then he just started filling in all these gaps. And he also started explaining to me, well, in this century, in this monastery, for a couple of 100 years, they worked on this aspect. And in another monastery worked on another aspect. And wandering Taoists who didn't have a fixed monastery, they worked on it. And so he ended up teaching me what was, at least at the first stages of it, all there was in qigong. And I would have, given my left arm to have learned that in my earlier days in Taiwan and Hong Kong.
And I would give a lot to have more time with you today, but I know we got to get out of here.
Well,
so
thank you.
I really appreciate you carving out the time. And I think we'll maybe pick this up again because I'd love to dive a little bit deeper into what you were just going into, I would love to learn a little bit more about Liu Hongjia's perspective.
As much as the time allows and as much as the people's talent allows, I'll give them everything I have. I don't consider I own this stuff. I'm just one of the many, like a big aqueduct. It goes from this stage to there, to there, to there. That's how I think of it. I'm just passing it on.
You're always incredibly generous with the way that you teach stuff. I really appreciate it.
And, what I do know is that a lot of what I do teach about this stuff, I've not run into anybody in America who's doing it.
Mm-hmm.
What you do get is you get people who specialize in this aspect of it, but then not how it goes to here.
Mm-hmm.
And these two are not how it goes to here. I learned it at the end as an integrated subject.
Yeah, it's an incredibly unique perspective. So thanks a ton, Bruce. The event that Bruce was just referencing is happening this weekend, December 6th and 7th. It's called Dynamic Standing and the Three Dantiens. Some of the things that we've touched on here will get expanded upon there. And just like Bruce was mentioning, a lot of this is meant to be complete on its own and give you a really great foundation. But it's also going to be an excellent preset for the longer training that he's doing this summer, where there's just more time. And as you guys can see, Bruce is just an encyclopedia of these types of things. And you just need more time to get more there. But he's an incredibly generous teacher. And we're looking forward to the weekend. Part of the weekend, you also get the Spiraling Energy Body Foundations video course with instructor Gio Mascio. And that just covers some of the very basic elements of spiraling, the spiraling energy body that Bruce was talking about. Bruce himself will be teaching it in a much more thorough way, but this will get your foot in the door and give you a path to begin expanding from your energy gates practice into the spiraling energy body. So we hope you'll join us and have a great day from Longmont, Colorado.